My name is Michael Levy. I'm a co-director of the PASS program. I'm here tonight with my partner, Ira Walfish, the other co-director. I'd like to welcome everybody to this session on obtaining your CPA and how PASS can help. I always like to start with this slide as it's a very positive slide. What it basically tells you, and this is a large part of the story, is that it is very, very doable. You can succeed on the CPA exam. But it's also a very honest slide. It's not a piece of cake. It's actually a very challenging exam. But with patience, persistence, discipline, and the right attitude, and really hard work, it's an exam that's very, very much doable, and the CPA designation is certainly attainable. Let me get down now to the nitty-gritty of what we would like to cover this evening. We're going to start off with a very general bird's eye overview of the CPA program and the CP. We'll then talk about something that's very important to everybody attending this evening, and that is some key changes that are taking place to the CPA program in 2025 that could very well impact when you write this exam. We'll then talk about, in part 3, the two main components necessary for getting through this exam. One is your ability to write cases effectively. This is a case-based exam, as we'll talk about in great detail. But it's also an exam that's quite technical. So you need a technical foundation and you need very strong technical skills. And we'll talk about how to prepare for this exam from both of these perspectives. And when you get to part 4, I'm going to turn over the virtual floor to my partner, Ira. And Ira will talk about a specific program that PASS designed specifically with Pakistani and Indian students in mind. The reason why the program caters specifically to these two groups is these two groups are kind of, you might call, privileged. They have the ability to obtain their CPA due to an MOU by only writing one exam, the CP. So given that Pakistani and Indian students are in very much the same boat, we've designed one program for both groups. We'll then talk about, Ira will then talk about the schedules. We'll show you some testimonials from past students who've participated in the program we developed for Pakistani and Indian students. Ira will speak very briefly about registration with PASS, as well as fees. Ira will also talk about registration with CPA provincial institutes. As some of you may be aware and some of you may not yet be aware, in order to write this exam, you do need to register with a provincial institute, or if you're planning to write in the western part of Canada, the CPA Western School of Business. Ira will address that very briefly. And then finally, at the end of the presentation, we'll provide you with contact information. I should mention right from the outset, you're very welcome to ask questions as we go along. My preference is that you ask the questions orally by just simply turning on your mic and asking the question, and then you can turn your mic off after you've asked your question. If you prefer to use the chat box, we'll do our best to monitor the chat box, but it's always nice to hear another voice. So let me begin now with a bird's eye view of the CPA program and the CP. I'm going to start by explaining what the program looks like for a typical Canadian student going through the program, and then I'll compare that with what a Pakistani student would need to do, or I shouldn't say a Pakistani student, what a Pakistani CA would need to do, and you'll see it's a great deal less than what Canadian students are expected to do. A typical Canadian student, in order to get his or her CPA, is required to take 2 technical modules. Each module is about 7 to 8 weeks, with an exam following the module. The first technical module covers primarily financial accounting. The second covers primarily management accounting. They then have to take 2 other modules. They are called elective modules, and they can choose from 4 areas. They can choose from assurance, tax, finance, or performance management. And for each of these other 2 modules, once again, they would have to write exams following the modules. They would then move on to Capstone 1 and Capstone 2. Capstone 1, they would be working as part of a group on a large business case. They would have to produce a mock report for a board of directors, and they would have to do a presentation in front of a mock board of directors. They would then move on to Capstone 2, where they would write previous or old CP cases, prior CP cases, which would be professionally marked. There is no exam at the end of Capstone 1, and there is no exam at the end of Capstone 2. Now, as a Pakistani CA, you don't have to take the technical modules. You also don't have to attend Capstone 1 or 2. You can go directly to the final exam, which is the CP. By the time a typical student gets to the CP in Canada, that student has already gone through the technical modules, Capstone 1 and 2. You go directly to the CP. There are 2 sittings for the CP. One is May 20th to May 30th of 24. The other is September 10th to the 12th. So this diagram, I think, presents pretty clearly what you need to do. You are exempt from the technical modules. You need to have the knowledge. Although you're exempt, you do need to have the knowledge, and PASS addresses that in the course. They realize you haven't taken these modules, but you still need the knowledge. Then you're also exempt from Capstone 1 and 2. As we'll explain later on, Capstone 1 is not terribly helpful for the CP, but Capstone 2 is, which is why we've developed what we call our alternative to Capstone 2. And then finally, the only thing you would have to do as a Pakistani or Indian CA would be to write the CP. So you're exempt from the first 2 boxes. You go straight to the 3rd box. Now let me give you a description of what this exam we call the CP is all about. The acronym stands for Common Final Examination. The most important piece of information you need to be aware of, some of you are already aware of this, I imagine, is that it is a 100% case-based exam. There are no short questions. There are no multiple choice questions. There are no theory questions. It is all cases. The cases are far larger than what you would find on a typical Pakistani CA exam, and they deal with multiple issues and multiple competencies. They will test a number of different subjects in the same case. The time that you are given to write these cases range from as short as 70 minutes to as long as 5 hours. We'll talk a little bit more in detail about this in just a moment. On a typical really short case, this is the short case, you're reading 5 to 6 pages. On a long case, you may have to read literally 15 to 20 pages. The way that a typical CP case appears is you typically have a main body to the case, which is usually not more than about a page, followed by multiple appendices where most of the information you're going to need to utilize to analyze the case is contained. So this is an example from the front page of a CP case or a simulated CP case. Notice that this is the main body, but you can see that in the main body, they refer to various appendices. So for example, here they refer to Appendix 1, here they refer to Appendix 2. Most of the information you need to analyze the case, as I mentioned a moment ago, is in these appendices. Now, the CP is broken down into 3 days. The first day, you write one large 4-hour case. We often refer to it as the comp, but that's really not the official title. The official title is simply the day 1 case. The day 1 case is actually based on the business case that students are working on during Capstone 1. During Capstone 1, students work on a fictional company. And as I mentioned earlier, they do a major business case based on this fictional company, and they do a mock presentation for a board of directors. When you walk into day 1 of the CP, you're going to be dealing with that same fictional company that the students worked on in Capstone 1, but we're a number of years down the road. The company is now facing new strategic and new operational issues. Some of you may be thinking, but if I'm a Pakistani CA, I never attended Capstone 1 in all likelihood because I'm not required to. And most Pakistani CAs, given that they're not required to attend Capstone 1, do not do so. So how do I write this day? Well, Ira will talk a little bit more about this later, but basically what we do at PASS is we fill in the blanks, so to speak. What we will do is we will give you all of the information you need so that you're capable of writing day one without having attended Capstone 1. Day one is the least technical of the 3 days. The more technical days are days 2 and 3. Day 2 is a bit of an endurance contest because you have to write one large 5-hour case. We refer to it as a roll comp because, as I'll explain in just a minute or two, you actually choose a specific role on this day. And it's really one big case. This is the case I referred to earlier, where you may have to read as much as 15 to 20 pages. On day 3, it's only 4 hours in total, and it's composed of 3 shorter cases, which will be anywhere from 70 to 90 minutes each, all adding up to 240 minutes or 4 hours. So you could have 3 cases that are 80 minutes. You could have a 90-minute case, a 70-minute case, and then an 80-minute case. It just has to add up to 4 hours. These shorter cases are often referred to as multi-cases because many, many different competencies, and by that I mean many different subjects, are tested in the same case. All cases, even day 1 and 2, test more than one competency, more than one subject, but day 3, you have a particularly large number of competencies tested in a fairly short case. These are the 6 competencies. As I said earlier, you can think of them as subjects that are examinable on the CFE. There is audit and assurance, financial reporting, management accounting, finance, taxation, and strategy and governance. The 2 most heavily tested areas on the exam are financial reporting and management accounting. They're typically given approximately equal weighting, much unlike many CA exams around the world. Let's take a closer look now at each of the days of the CFE. The day 1 case, as we mentioned before, is a large 4-hour case. As I mentioned before, it's based on the same company that students work on during Capstone 1. The only thing is the company is a number of years down the road, it's 5 or 10 years later, and they're now facing new strategic and new operational issues. This is meant, as I mentioned earlier, to be the least technical of the 3 days. It's really meant to test your higher level skills, your big picture skills, your ability to look at strategic issues, your analytic skills, etc. It's marked separately from the other 2 days. You simply get a pass or a fail. And again, because it's marked separately, as we'll see in a moment, if you pass day 1, even if you fail day 2 and 3, there's no need to write day 1 again because it is marked separately. As I mentioned earlier, it's the least technical of the 3 days. Day 2 of the CFE is where you have this endurance test where you sit and write for 5 hours. And I referred to the day 2 case as the roll comp. The reason why I refer to it as the roll comp is as follows. The way that this case works is as follows. You will have to deal with financial accounting and or management accounting issues. In all likelihood, both. For the last few years, you've always had to deal with both financial accounting as well as management accounting. Everybody writing the CFE has to deal with these financial accounting and management accounting issues. But then, in addition to dealing with financial accounting and management accounting issues, you will then choose a role, and you will make this choice prior to the CFE. The 4 roles from which you can choose are audit, or really assurance. I'm using the word audit very loosely. Assurance, tax, performance management, or finance. You would only choose one of these 2 roles. At the end of the day, there are only 3 competencies that they can test on day 2. In all likelihood, they will test financial and management accounting, which are 2 competencies. All of the rest of the requirements that you will need to deal with on day 2 will relate to the role that you've chosen. So let's say I chose assurance as my role. Again, I'm using the word audit loosely. It's really assurance. Let's say I choose assurance as my role. I will have to deal with financial accounting and management accounting. And all the other issues I deal with, all the other requirements and issues I deal with will revolve around assurance. If the person sitting next to me chose tax, that individual will have to deal with the same financial accounting and management accounting issues that I have to deal with, but all the remainder of his requirements will relate to tax. So the maximum number of competencies that you will have to deal with on day 2 of the CFE is 3. Financial accounting, management accounting, plus 1 other competency, depending on which of these 4 roles you've chosen. Is everybody clear on how day 2 works? Okay. Now let's take a look at day 3. Day 3 is where you've got the shorter cases, what I referred to earlier as the multis. The reason we call them multis is multi is short for multi-competency. On day 3, each case, even though the cases are only 70 to 90 minutes, each case will test 4 to 6 competencies. So these are the competencies. Typically, at least 4 of these will be tested in each of the 3 cases, possibly as many as all 6, depending on the case. Some cases might test 4, some might test 5, some might test 6. On day 3, you do not choose a role. Everybody writes exactly the same cases. Day 2 and 3 are marked together. So if you're unsuccessful on day 2 and 3, you only have to rewrite day 2 and 3. And that's what we talked about earlier, right? I mentioned earlier, day 1 is marked separately from day 2 and 3. So if someone fails day 1, but they pass day 2 and 3, they just repeat day 1. If somebody fails day 2 and 3, but they pass day 1, they just repeat day 2 and 3. So you can almost look at them as separate exams, which you can pass or fail. Here are some key facts that I think are quite important to people. Number 1, everyone in Canada writes the same CPA exam. It's a national exam, not a provincial exam. You've got 3 attempts to pass, which should be more than enough. The exam is not written using pen and paper. It's written on computer. The qualitative portion of the exam, you would write in Word. The number crunching, you would do in Excel. The actual exam paper is given to you physically. So you have a physical copy of the exam paper, but you would write the exam electronically. The exam is somewhat like an open book exam. Not that you can bring books into the exam, but you do have a copy of the electronic handbook. The handbook in Canada is basically a book put out by CPA Canada, and it has all of the standards, both for accounting as well as for audit. You have access to that electronically throughout the exam for all 3 days. You also are given the Canadian Tax Act. That's our tax code. Unlikely you would be using the Tax Act on the exam, but quite likely that you would be using the handbook on the exam. One of the nice things about the CPA designation is it doesn't matter one bit where you write the exam. Doesn't matter whether I write it in Ontario or the other side of Canada and British Columbia. As long as I write in one province, I can practice in every other province. So it really is pretty arbitrary where you write this exam. It's more a question of convenience, etc. Where am I living, etc. Where if I'm traveling to Canada, where do I have, if I'm coming here just to write the exam, where do I have relatives? It really doesn't matter from a professional perspective where you write the exam, given that once you've got the designation in any province, you are qualified to practice wherever you like. There are many CPAs who might qualify, say, in Ontario and spend the rest of their life practicing in Alberta. Nothing to stop you from doing that. Alberta is another one of the provinces for those of you who are not that familiar with Canadian geography yet. Okay. Any questions on what I've gone over so far?
Okay. I have one question, Michael.
Sure.
So regarding the topic which you just mentioned about different provinces, so I was just wondering, is it gonna be covered in your next slides if any changes gonna affect that? Like if anyone got their CPA from Saskatchewan or Alberta. So would that affect with the changes which are coming for Ontario?
It's a very good question. I'm glad you asked, because people who are familiar with the changes happening right now might be wondering about that. We were at a meeting a little while ago with CPA Ontario, and they made it very clear that the one thing they definitely plan to maintain, regardless of how other things change, is that there will be a uniform exam across the country so that people will be able to practice throughout the country. That is something that CPA Ontario, as well as the order in Quebec, which is in the same boat as CPA Ontario, are very much committed to maintaining. So education is still going to be national, regardless of where things go in other respects. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
My pleasure. Any other questions? What I'd like to share with you now are some major changes taking place to the CPA program in 025. The CPA education program is being revamped in 025. It's going to result in the CP disappearing and being replaced by other exams. Also, the competency map, which acts as a syllabus that indicates what you're responsible to know for the exam, is also expected to change significantly. And they're planning to add non-traditional subjects, so to speak, things that you probably were not tested on extensively on your Pakistan exam, like data analytics, organizational behavior, sustainability, things that would not necessarily be that inviting for an international CA who has a designation that tested the more traditional building tools of the profession. The exact nature of this new exam is still up in the air. So I can't give you very much detail because I think there isn't a huge amount of detail yet. It's in some ways, I wouldn't say it's a black box, but it's pretty close to that. There may still be a CP in 025. There's quite a good likelihood there will be, but it's not yet clear who will be eligible to write it. Students who are in the process of their CPA education right now, quite likely will be able to write it if they're at a certain stage of their education. Whether Indian or Pakistani CAs will be able to write it, that is very much a question mark. That is something that I would not take as a given. It's too early to know whether there will still be an MOU with India and Pakistan. Right now, they don't even know what the new educational system looks like, so it's impossible to talk about whether there'll be an MOU. Even if there is an MOU, it would be impossible to know what it will entail. Right now, I can tell you, based on the present system, you're exempt from pretty much everything except the final exam called the CP. Once we get to the new system, it's impossible to say what you'll be exempt from and what you'll have to write because we don't even know what the new system will look like. So if you're a typical CA, you're relatively risk averse, you'd rather not have to deal with the unknown. You'd rather deal with the devil you know rather than a black box, so to speak. I would strongly, strongly recommend that you cut your risk so you don't have to worry about what these new changes are going to be and whether they will be beneficial or not for international CAs, and try to write in 024. It's not too late to write in 024. It's not too late for May. It's not too late for September. I will talk a little more detail about this later on in the presentation, but that would be my strong recommendation. If you put off writing, quite frankly, it's really impossible for me to say what will be involved in the future. In other words, to sum up, I would look at 024 as a window of opportunity.
So I have one question.
Yes.
So those who would be appearing for the very first time in the year 2024, most likely they would have 2 attempts to clear the CFE.
Yeah, it's a good question. What they will do is even with the system changing, they will still give people the opportunity to rewrite. So let's say, for example, you write in 024. Hopefully you'll pass. But if something goes wrong and you don't pass, yes, you will still have an opportunity to write again, and in all likelihood, a further opportunity to write again after that. So they're not trying to cut down your opportunities to write. The question is, if you've never written before and you want to write for the first time in 025, that's where you may have a problem. We don't know if you'll be able to write or not.
So, so in case if day 2 and day 3, like you pass day 2 and day 3,
Mhm.
and like for instance, God forbid, day 1, for like assuming not passed yet, like after September 2024 exams. So, like in
You-
2025, day 1 exams will be
That
similar to, like, is there any clarity so far?
Yes, what I'm saying to you is that's not going to change. Just like if somebody wrote in 2023 and failed day 1, they can rewrite it in 024. If you write in 024 and you fail day 1, you'll be able to write it in 025. Because since you wrote already in 024, whatever days you failed, you will have the chance to rewrite.
Okay,
Doesn't matter whether it's day 1 or day 2 and 3 or all 3 days. Does that answer
okay.
your question?
Yes, please.
Okay, great. What I'd like to talk about now is the importance of case writing and technical in preparing for the CP. As I mentioned earlier, case writing is absolutely essential for passing the CP. And the reason is very simple. The CP is a 100% case-based exam. So if you're not able to write cases, regardless of how strong your technical knowledge is, it is impossible to pass. So a major task in passing the CP, it's achievable, but it's major, is learning how to write cases effectively. Now, learning how to write cases is not a skill you can master overnight. You can't learn to fly a plane overnight. You can't learn to write cases overnight. The bottom line here is that it can take months to learn how to write cases effectively. That's why we always tell people the earlier you start, the better. There are some people who go as far back as a whole year. I'm not going to tell you need a whole year, but there are people who take that long. You can certainly do it in less than a year, but you do need many months to learn how to write cases effectively. Now, the bottom line is that you don't simply master all your technical and then say, now I'm ready to write cases, but rather you're doing both at the same time. While you're learning your technical, you're also practicing your case writing. Now, from a technical perspective, the two biggest areas to focus on are financial accounting, which includes both ASPE, which are accounting standards for private enterprises that were developed specifically in Canada. So an average international CPA, CA or CPA would not be familiar with. And then there's IFRS, which you may be familiar with. And then, as I mentioned earlier, management accounting is given equal weighted. Now, that doesn't mean that I spend the same amount of time on both. The body of knowledge for financial accounting is far more vast than management accounting. So even though they're equally weighted, and I want to make sure to know them both well, I would be spending a great deal more time on financial accounting. Also, unlike the case of financial accounting, where you may need to master a new set of standards, because it's unlikely you'd be familiar with accounting standards for private enterprises, ASPE, which is Canadian based, management accounting, to the best of my knowledge, doesn't differ across the globe. Now, another area that you'd probably want to focus on a lot is going to be tax. The bottom line is that you need to know the basic compliance when it comes to tax. Okay, you need to know the basic compliance. Now, as a Pakistan CA, it's unlikely you would be very familiar with the Canadian Tax Act. There's no reason for that to be the case unless you happen to be in Pakistan working on, Canadian subsidiaries. So it's highly unlikely. Now, there's some good news and bad news here. The good news is that unless you choose tax as your role on day 2, and very few CAs from Pakistan would do so. The bottom line is you don't need to know the fancy tax planning. You don't need to know a lot of the complexities. You need to know the basic compliance. You need to know how to calculate taxable income. You need to know what's taxable. You need to know what's deductible. So is there a fair amount of knowledge you need to pick up? Yes, but it's certainly not insurmountable given that you don't need to know a lot of the complexities. Now, what about the three other areas? Audit, finance, and governance, okay? When it comes to these areas, and again, audit really means assurance. It includes more than just audit. The bottom line is a large part of how assurance is tested on this exam is through having you plan an auditor review, having you come up with procedures, having you deal with controls. A large part of that should be common between Canada and Pakistan. Probably not huge differences. Are there areas of assurance that are different? Of course there are. We have all sorts of special reports that are different. Even our standard report may be different. But for there's a large amount of overlap. A large part of what you need to know to excel on audit, you're going to pick up through your case writing. So there's not a huge amount of pure technical studying necessary for assurance. There's a much greater amount of technical studying necessary for financial accounting and tax. Finance on the CP is not at a very sophisticated level. So with a Pakistan CA, I would be very surprised if you didn't have the necessary knowledge of finance. Very, very basic. I did an MBA in finance. I would say that the level at which finance is tested on the CFE is probably lower than a first-year introductory finance course in MBA school. It also tends to be very numerical. A large part of finance you can pick up, if you don't already have the skill, from case writing. The last of the 6 competencies are strategy and governance. And strategy and governance is 98% common sense. We'll give you a little bit of technical material here, but you will spend very, very, very minimal time on the technical. Because strategy and governance, you will see when you start to write cases, is just pure common sense, and you pick up the ability to deal with it through case writing. Are there any questions before I pass over the virtual floor to Ira? Okay, so thank you very much for your attention. Ira, if you'd like to take over now, I'll stop sharing my screen and you can share your screen.
Okay, thank you very much. Let me just share my screen. Okay. That's right. Okay. I just want to make sure. Can you see this moving?
Yes.
You can see it moving, right?
Yes.
Okay. 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 Hi, I'm Ira. I'm the other guy that teaches with Michael. As Michael said, if you have any questions or anything, by all means, please stop me and ask questions. I will be attempting to look at the chat box as I'm going through this. And obviously you can unmute your microphone and ask a question. Okay, so I'm just going to pick up where Michael left off. I'll talk a little bit about the past program to start with. So we've been doing this for a lot of years. You could see basically when we started. Let me just get my annotation here. I mean, we started like, I don't know, 89. And we've done sessions for all of the 4 firms. For many years, including continuing this year or next year, we have been running the PwC program across Canada. So we do offer our courses across Canada. Michael did very well when he actually wrote. You can see here, he was actually a gold medalist when he wrote. And overall, I mean, I think students are generally happy with the course. The feedback is very good. We have tons of testimonials on the website. I'll show you a few of those afterwards. But overall, it's whatchamacallit, it's good. Okay, so what we did a number of years ago is we put together a specific course really for people either from Pakistan or India, because that's where the MOU is signed with both those countries, where students can go directly to the CFE if they have a Pakistani CA or an Indian CA. So this course really encompasses these three features. There's technical, case writing, and personal counseling. Here is a bird's eye view. Here is a bird's eye view. If you want to kind of see like what students do in the course. Part of the course is what we call self-study. So for example, what is self-study? It's really two things. Number one, we give you a technical binder and you read the technical binder and you watch the videos and you're studying the technical topics. We also have some practice cases where you would write those practice cases and you would not hand them in. You would just write them and mark yourself. And then we have the formal instruction. In the formal instruction, we'll have classes and you'll write cases. So you'll write cases, we'll mark them. We'll have a take-up. We'll have a take-up, for example, where we will go over the case. Some of the classes will be live online sessions where we're teaching technical, like financial accounting or management accounting. We also have, I won't get into detail with this, but we also have sessions called technique sessions. These are not really technical. They're just basically things that you can do to improve your chances on the case to move up the levels. I know that doesn't really make 100% sense because we have not explained the marking scheme, but basically you could do things in a case to improve your chances to do well on the case. These are technique sessions. And then we have the personal counseling, which I'll talk about in a few minutes. So this is, again, this is kind of like if you want to step back and look at the whole course, part of it's self-study, part of it is through the classes that are the live online sessions. Does anyone have any questions here? Everyone's okay? Yes.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Regarding the live online sessions, what are the timings like for these sessions? Do you offer on weekends or in the evening or?
Yeah, it's a very good question. Most of the sessions are weekdays in the evening. We do have some sessions that will be, for example, on the weekend. That would be a Sunday, no session on Saturday. So most of the sessions would be, the classes would be in the weekdays in the evening, let's say 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, like we started tonight. They would run maybe 2 hours, 2.5 hours, maximum 3 hours. But keep in mind, we record everything. It doesn't really matter if you miss a session. You just watch the video. If you have questions on the session, you're watching, by the way, the exact same session, just like we're recording this session now. All we do is we run the session live and we record it, and then we upload the recording. So you go and you watch the identical session, you hear the questions, you hear everything. The only difference is you cannot ask a question to the recording. So what if you have a question? Then you contact myself or Michael, and we're always answering questions from students, either email, WhatsApp, phone, whatever you want.
Yeah, one more follow-up question.
Yeah.
What's the duration of these sessions? Like how many sessions and for how many days or months you cover?
So, you know, it's a good question. I don't even know what the total is. Our sessions, this is going to come up, I think, in a few minutes. Our sessions for the May CFE start in November. Our sessions
Oh.
for the September CFE start in January. And we have a whole schedule that you can see on the website, and you can see all the sessions. Some weeks there's no class. Other weeks there might be one class or maybe even two classes in the evening, maybe a Tuesday night and a Thursday night. And then maybe the next week there won't be anything. So we have classes all the way from November, mid-November, till about May. And for September, we have classes from January till September, or really till, I don't know, mid-August. And you can see on our website, pastorcpa.ca, you can see we have like all the different schedules, and you could just click and look up the schedule. You will see every class laid out for the May and September 2024 CFE. You'll see the dates, you'll see the times.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I have one more question on this.
Yep.
So what weightage between the self-study and the sessions, the formal sessions?
I'm sorry, say that again. What's the difference?
What's the weightage, between the self-study and a formal sessions? Yeah.
Oh boy, that's hard to answer. Okay, all right, let me try and be specific. Okay, there's 6 technical areas, as Michael described. Financial accounting, we will run all the sessions live. Management accounting, we'll run some of the sessions live. The other 4 areas, we don't run any of the sessions live. There's just too many. So those would all be self-study. So from a technical perspective, I'm breaking it down now between technical and case writing. From a technical perspective, the self-study would really be the 4 areas, not financial accounting and not management accounting, and a few sessions management accounting we would not be doing live. Some we would, some we wouldn't, and all the financial accounting we would. The case writing is all basically live, with the exception of the practice cases, which I'm not even sure who does them. I give them right at the beginning of the course. But all the case sessions will be live. All the sessions, you write exams, we do take-ups, those will all be actual live online sessions. So most of the course, I guess I would have to say, is live. We just can't do 100% of it. It's a lot of sessions. I'm not going to lie to you, it is a lot of sessions live. But like I keep saying, it's very flexible. You don't have to attend every single one. You can watch a live session on video. That's all. But most of the session probably would be I think, like through the live online sessions, except for those 4 more minor areas in the technical where you would just have the videos and you'd watch the videos and read the binder.
If you're interested in getting an idea of what the schedule looks like for the live sessions, I've posted the master schedule for Pakistan CAs into the chat box. So at some point, if you want to copy that and look at it later, you can get an idea of what the schedules look like for both the May and the September exam. Also, depending on whether you're living currently in the country, in Canada or outside Canada.
Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, that'll be helpful. That's good. Okay.
One more thing, if I may ask.
Yeah, sure.
Those candidates who have like enrolled with you and then appeared for CFA exams, any analysis on the passing percentage, like how, like the likelihood of going through your
Right.
study program and then appearing
Okay,
for
so
the CFA?
also very good question. Okay, the actual pass rate for all of Canada is approximately 72%. There is no pass rate for students from Pakistan or India, obviously, where we have an MOU. Even if there is a pass rate for that, they would never disclose it. We don't know 100% what the pass rate is. Okay, we don't follow up with every student. But obviously what ends up happening is after the exam, after the results come out, a lot of people will go and they will call us and they'll tell us, or they'll email us. Either way, either if they failed or if they passed. Based on the feedback, and again, this is not 100% because we don't know exactly how many students that we were teaching in the course of the year actually wrote that year, or some people delay it. They don't always tell us, they don't write. I think they write, but they're going to delay it, till the following year. We don't really know 100%. I can tell you from the students that get back to us, we're probably somewhere around 60 to 65%. Take that with a bit of grain of salt because we just don't know 100%. We know it's going to be a little bit lower than the national average. The reason it's going to be a little lower is two reasons. Number one, the whole case writing element is totally new to students from Pakistan/India. And number two, it's English sometimes is an issue, not always, but sometimes for people from India or Pakistan, English is an issue, how quickly they type and just familiarity with English. So we know that because it's a totally new system, and the case writing is totally new, and the English issue, it's going to be a little lower. Look, obviously we want 100% of the students to pass. So, you know, if you're going to ask me, am I happy with that pass rate? Truthfully, what we find the biggest determinant is the people that start earlier and write the cases have a very good possibility of getting through. The people that start much later and for whatever reason don't write half the cases have a much harder time getting through. When students call me afterwards, they tell me that, you know, if they're unsuccessful, I will have a discussion with them and I will ask, I will say, you know, we gave you X number of cases in the month of whatever, July. Did you write them all? A lot of times when people are unsuccessful, they will tell me, well, I wrote 2, I didn't write 3, I had to skip a few of them, I was really busy. The reason doesn't really matter. But that is a big problem when people are unsuccessful. What I have heard, although I don't know any formal statistics, through the people who don't take the course, who just write, who are from India/Pakistan, I'm combining India and Pakistan because it really is the same thing, okay? Both, right? A CA from India, a CA from Pakistan, you go directly to the CFE. The results are very, very low. So when people ask me, am I happy with the results? Again, obviously I want 100% to pass, but our results, we are killing the statistics for the people that just passed to the Institute. Again, I've heard this informally. The course is working. We are not changing the course. We've been running it now for like 4 or 5 years. And it's significant, it's big, it's substantive, like I can't really add to it, but we have thrown everything we can into this course and it really is working. Okay, I just have a little note here. You can move on, this question. Right, okay. All right, so hopefully that answers the question. Okay, just moving on. All right, so some of this I've already covered. I can go quickly on some of this. The technical studying, as I said before, you know, it doesn't matter so much if you studied many years ago. That's okay. We always have a mixed group. Some people, you know, passed their CA many years ago. Other people are much more recent. It is what it is. The truth is everybody has to go and relearn technical, especially ASPE. Regardless of when you learned it in Pakistan, you may have done IFRS, you would not have done ASPE, you would not have done tax. So the bottom line is everybody has to kind of learn and review their technical. Case writing, so I mentioned this before, where the self-study is really just something we give at the beginning of the course. We give some cases where you can write on your own, and I don't know who does this, but the more cases you write, the better. And then what we call the formal instruction. During the course, you're writing lots of cases, we're marking them, and we have all the take-ups. And we have those technique sessions on how to attack cases successfully. Okay. If you want to see an example, here's a link to see an example of a case take-up, and here's a link to see an example of a technical take-up. This will give you a perfect idea of exactly how we take up a case, how we do a technical session. The personal counseling, I said I would explain that. It's very simple. We have 3 sessions. You write a case, the marker marks it, sends it back to you, and then meets with you for half an hour over WhatsApp, over Zoom or whatever, Skype, and goes over the case with you. That's called a personal counseling session. We do that 3 times. Okay. The markers are always giving you feedback. They always mark your cases and tell you what you did right and tell you what you did wrong. That's very important. But this is a half an hour session where they're really going over your case and they're talking to you, okay, over what you did right and what you didn't do right. Any questions? These are all the details of the whole program. Okay. Just to add a few points to Michael's points on Capstone 1 and 2. So Michael mentioned, you know, you don't have to go to Capstone 1 and 2. Capstone 1 ties in with day 1 of the CFE, okay? Capstone 2 is really just practice case writing, okay? Where they mark your cases. Now, I'm going to show you in a few minutes how that ties into the whole pricing. All right, I think most of this, Indian time, whatever, yeah, some sessions are off it. Yeah, so basically, we do offer some sessions on India time, on IST time. So if, I guess, you are in Pakistan, those sessions would be, I guess, in the ballpark, or you could actually watch them live. When we offer sessions, obviously, Eastern Standard Time, it's going to be like in the middle of the morning for you, not so useful. But everything is on video, available 24/7. There are no maximums or anything like that. Okay, so overall, there's a little quick bird's eye view. I don't know, about 30 classes. I'm not even sure exactly the number. You can add them up if you want. You can look at the schedule. Michael put it in the chat before. You know, there's a ton of videos, whatever, how many cases we marked, and 3 counseling sessions. All right. So let me just have a couple of important comments on the schedules. On the website, we have 2 versions for the September CFE. Version 1 and version 2. The only difference is that in version 1, you write cases in January, February, March. Those same cases in version 2 are written in the summer. When you register, you have to choose which version you want. It doesn't really matter. We recommend version 1 is better because if you're registering early, it's better to write cases early rather than later. But regardless of which version you register, you can still write those same cases in the summer if you don't have a chance to write them in January, February, March. Everything else in the course is identical. This is not a big deal. We just make these 2 versions because we try and encourage when people register. If you register in January for September, I'd rather get you into case writing January, February, March, and not wait until, I don't know, like May. But if you're busy and you said to me in January, Ira, I can't do it. I want to write in September. I'm going to register for the course now, but I don't have time to write those 3 cases now. Okay, so you would do version 2. You'd write those cases in the summer. You would start writing cases in May. That's all. For the May CFE, there is no version 1 and version 2. You just register for the May CFE. Okay, does that make sense? Any questions? Okay, so I've already mentioned this. It is better, I mean, to start earlier. Starting now, we're starting the classes in a few weeks. Perfect for May. September, we start the classes in January, but I will make a point that is not so obvious. I don't really care when we start the classes. We start you studying when you register. We have many people now registered for September. What are they doing? Oh, I send you the technical binder. I send you the technical binder, and immediately when you register, and you start watching the videos and studying the technical. So what if the classes start a month or 2 months or 3 months later? I don't care. Always earlier is better. So we have lots of people now registered for September. Yeah, the classes start in January. Sorry, just one thing in the chat. Yes, yeah, sure. Someone's asked if they can get the slides. Yeah, for sure. You can have the slides. Okay. So is everyone okay? From a timing perspective, you're fine if you start now. You can work full time, not a problem. It's good for May, and you're also fine for September, not a problem. More time, always better. Okay, so take this with a bit of grain of salt, but how much time should you spend? I don't know, 10, 15 hours a week. Assumes you're working. Assumes you're working full time. Obviously, as you get closer and closer to the exam, this is going to go up. It's just kind of a rough estimate. I'm not going to waste time reading these people. We have many testimonials. Excuse me. We have many testimonials on the website from students. So you can kind of read this. These are testimonials specifically from, I don't remember now, either Pakistani or Indian students who wrote and passed, and you can see many others. You can see many others on the website. Okay, so like I say, whatchamacallit, we'll get you these slides, and again, you can look at these, whatever, or just look on the website, and you'll see many of them. Okay, but overall, like I say, it's working, and we're getting a lot of students from India and Pakistan through the first time. Okay. Now, any questions before I start with registration and the fees? Okay. So to register, you would register online. You would go to the page, either living in Canada or not living in Canada. Okay. And as I said before, we will start you studying as soon as you register. We give a 15% discount. You will not see that on the website. You have to email us. We give you a coupon code. Now, there's 3 options when you register. To be honest, I'm not even sure why I still do 3 options. Number 2, hardly anybody does. But it's really option 1 or option 3. Option 1 is you take the full course. It's $27.95 minus 15%. 2 months before the CFE, we send an email and we tell you to purchase the Capstone 2 material. It costs $250. You buy it from the Institute, whichever institute, wherever you're living. You're out west, buy it from west. Okay, you're in Ontario, buy from Ontario. Okay, why are you buying this? The reason you're buying this is because for the last 7 weeks, in option 1, you will be writing a case every week, handing it in for marking. We'll mark it and send it back. That is effectively Capstone 2. Option 1, we call it the past course plus the alternative to Capstone 1 and 2. Essentially, you are doing Capstone 2 through us. You're writing the same cases as if you would go and pay $1,400 with the Institute to go to Capstone 2. Rather than do that and write the case and give it to them to mark, you're writing the case and giving it to me to mark. Okay? That is option 1. That is the full program. So it really is kind of like $19.95 for the course plus another $800 to mark those Capstone 2 cases, and then we take off 15% for the discount. That's how we get the $23.75. Everybody okay so far? All right. Option 2, people, I'm going to spend literally 5 seconds on this because nobody does this. Option 2 is we get, I shouldn't say nobody, we've had the odd situation, the really weird situations where somebody calls me up and they have a CA from Pakistan or India, and they call me up and they say, oh, I'm going to Capstone 1 and 2, but I want to take your course. I will say, why are you going to Capstone 1 and 2? And they'll say, oh, I have no choice. I'm working for a firm and they're forcing me to go to Capstone 1 and 2 and they're going to pay. Okay. If that's the case, then the price of the program is $19.95 minus 15%. Okay. And then I guess you'll pay about $13.50 for Capstone 1 and $13.50 for Capstone 2 is $2,700. People, we don't recommend this option for two reasons. Number one, it's way more expensive. But number two, it's not a good use of time for Capstone 1. So this option, you can kind of forget about unless you're in some weird, unique situation where you have no choice and you have to go to Capstone 1 and 2. Nobody does that voluntarily if you're from Pakistan or India. Okay, very rare. So that's option 2. So like I say, very unusual. Option 3 is more common. Option 3, you take our course. But remember I said, I'm going to send an email I'm going to send an email about 2 months before the CFE, and I'm going to tell you to buy the Capstone 2 material. And it's going to cost $250. In this option, you're going to buy the material like option 1 because you're going to want the material. But in this option, you will not give me those cases to mark. You'll mark the Capstone 2 yourself. If that's the case, I'm not charging you $800 minus 15% like in option 1. So this case, you're paying the $19.95 minus 15%. And really the price is $16.95. Most people prefer option 1 because they want us to mark more cases. The difference between option 1 and option 3 is a volume difference in case marking. In option 1, we mark about, 22 cases. In this option, it's about half. So most people like option 1, but some people do choose option 3. They say, okay, I'll mark my own capstone. I'll mark my own capstone 2 cases. Everything else in the course is identical. Well, there's no difference. Okay, all the classes, all the technical material, everything I said up until now is the same. I don't have to repeat anything or change anything. The only difference is who marks those Capstone 2 cases. Option 1, we do. Option 3, you do. That's the difference. Questions? Does that make sense? Everyone's good? Okay. So it really comes down to, if you kind of look at my points here, it really comes down to, I think for most people, it really comes down to a money thing because most people want more cases marked. So if you have limited funds, option 3 is fine. Okay. If you can make it work and we try and help you with this, then just do option 1. So how do we help you? Here's how we help you. We let people pay by credit card. We let people pay by installments. We don't charge interest. And the number of installments is based on your cash flow. So you tell us how many installments. It's flexible. So that's how people basically make it work. Okay, the way it works is when you register, you don't actually pay anything, and then you send me a follow-up email with the installment information. Questions on anything with the fees? Everyone is good? Okay, so you look, to get, I don't know, the total fees here, 5,000 maybe US, something like that, if you want to see. I don't know. You can kind of add it all up. There's an annual student fee. There's a one-time registration fee. These are not to us. These are to the Institute. And there's a CPA, there's a CFE fee, which is about $1,700. And then there's our course. Okay. So as Michael mentioned, people, just to kind of finish off, registration with the CPA Provincial Institute. Let's just talk, because this is kind of important for a second here, of when you register. Everybody has to register with the Institute. The question is when. If you're writing in May, please register now. Okay? October, early November, register now for May. That's fine. Please do not wait until January. That will be too late. They will probably tell you it's too late. They take a lot of weeks to register foreign students from India and Pakistan. Ontario's particularly slow. They take 8 to 12 weeks. So you try January and you say, I want to write May, forget it. That's going to be too late.
Yeah, if I could just interject for a second, just want to make sure that everybody understands Ontario is very slow, and in Ontario, it would be very unwise to wait until January to register. If you're planning to write out west, I would strongly suggest that you contact the CPA Western School of Business, because they can process applications much, much more quickly. And I would ask them, if you were to register at the very beginning of January, would they be able to process your application in time to write in May? It may be possible, but I would suggest you check with them. As Ira points out, in Ontario, it will not be possible.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. No, it's a very good point. I'm not sure either 100%. I don't think there's a real cutoff. That's always part of the judgment call here. I don't think there's a real cutoff of the last date when you can register, and they'll let you write the CFE if you're from Pakistan. I don't think there's a real cutoff here. Okay. Obviously, this may be obvious, but I'm going to say this, it's kind of important. It doesn't matter to us when you register with the Institute. That's kind of irrelevant. We have many people who start studying with us, and they don't register. Let's say they register in January for September, not for May, for September. But they want to start studying before, which is great. So they start studying. So they sign up for our course now. And then a few months later, they register with the Institute. Now, if you're writing in September, I would wait till January, because otherwise there could be an additional fee. I know there is in Ontario. I'm not exactly sure in some of the other provinces, but there might be. The last 6 months of the year, they charge you, but you don't need to be registered in the last 6 months of the year if you're writing in September. So if you're writing in September, register in January. No reason to register now unless you're already registered, but no reason to register now if you're writing in September. Okay. Oh, someone was just saying it took what? Wow, 1 month. That's amazing. You got very lucky. It took somebody 1 month from Ontario. Okay, count yourself lucky. The 8 to 12 weeks, I hate to tell you, is not really an exaggeration. It really is not. I don't know why, but anyway, you think they'll figure it out quicker than this, given that they've been doing this for a bunch of years, but I don't know. Okay. Everyone good? Questions? All right. As Michael said, it doesn't really matter where you write this exam. You have to register with the Institute and you have to write in that province. The next day you can move and go across the country and live the rest of your life across the country and no one cares. You can work and practice in any province. But you write the exam wherever you register. I could go and live in Vancouver and I could go register with Ontario, as long as I don't mind flying to Ontario for 3 days and write the CFE and then fly back to Vancouver. You could totally do that. Most people don't do that. They just write where they live. And that's where they write. Okay. Here's some links. You can look at some of these links. I don't know, into CPA Ontario and the Western School of Business. Again, where you'll have the PowerPoint presentation, so you guys can see these links. People, one thing about the registration, we often get asked the question, do we help in the registration? And the answer basically is not really. Number one, I don't think it'd be a good use of my time or even your time for me to try and help you with registration. It's not necessary. Because of confidentiality and privacy legislation, I can't even see half the stuff anyway. It's cumbersome, it's bureaucratic, but everybody gets through it. It's not an issue. I don't think I can recall one example of somebody that signed up for the course and then had a problem registering after they had a CA from Pakistan or India, and then they had a problem registering and couldn't write the CFE. I don't think we ever had that. As long as you have a CA from Pakistan, you are fine. You can write this exam. It's going to be bureaucratic, back and forth with the institute and whatever, giving them the documents and the things they need. That's the reason we don't really get involved in it. We can't add very much value, okay? And it's not necessary. So if anybody is worried, oh, I'm going to sign up for the course and then I have to register, what happens if? What I'm telling you is, please don't worry about that as long as you have a CA from Pakistan. You don't have to worry about that. Oh, somebody else is writing here. Yeah, we are going to share this. Somebody else is writing what happened. Took my case on CPA a lot longer. I'm guessing around 3 months. Yeah, okay, 3 months. Yeah, so 3 months, people, is 12 weeks. Please register in advance. Yeah. Well, that's what we're saying. Ontario's slow. 8 to 12 weeks. Yeah. That's not surprise, and that's not even unusual. 1 month is unusual. But Western Canada's faster. I don't know why. They're much faster. Okay. So people, I think that's basically it. Here's our contact information. So we are always available for answering questions and things like that. Those are our emails. Okay, those are our phone numbers and WhatsApp numbers. And you can obviously get information by just going to the website. Okay, so we do answer a lot of questions. We know people have a lot of questions. You know, and we do provide support. There's 2 of us, so we are always answering questions and providing guidance along the way. Okay. My name is has a concern total time allotted. Oh, okay. Not a problem. Okay, so just to kind of finish off here, the 4 most important is a lot of good information here, hopefully, but the 4 most important takeaways, as Michael talked about, I didn't really get into that, but this is a big deal. Number 1, there's just a lot of uncertainty beginning in 2025. So if you can, just write in 2024, either May or September, and then you're fine. You don't have to worry about anything that's happening in 2025. As Michael said, if you're unsuccessful, you'll be fine. You'll be able to write again. You're not going to be impacted. If you delay till 2025, there is definitely more risk. We just don't know 100%. Number 2, the program is totally doable. We're working full time. It doesn't matter where you're located, Pakistan, India, it doesn't really matter. You could do this program from anywhere in the world. Who cares? Starting early, we try to emphasize that is important. It's not full time. You can work full time, but there's a decent amount of volume of material. So starting early is good. And, you know, the technical review is important. It's an ongoing process. You're studying your technical ongoing while you're writing cases. I didn't make this point before. I don't recall if Michael made this point, but You don't study all your technical and finish it and then say, now I'll write cases. It's a combined approach. As you're studying technical, you are writing cases, and the cases are helping you build up the technical. If you start earlier, you can study technical for a few months maybe before you even get into a case. If you start later, you're going to be into cases before you've got too much technical under your belt. It is what it is, depending on when you start. Okay. People, questions. That really wraps up pretty much everything that I wanted to go through. Do you guys have any questions?
Yeah, one quick question. Does the online session and the binder, the study material that you provide, is it like good enough, or we'll have to refer to some other material?
No, it's look, the binder, the study material we give you is complete. However, you use it in conjunction with the handbook, because the handbook, as Michael mentioned, is an open book exam. So you want to use the handbook in conjunction with our material. As Michael also said, the Tax Act, it's also open book, but who cares? You're not gonna do anything really with the Tax Act. But no, what we give you, you don't have to buy any other material beside the material that we give you. CPA will give you material online. So people often ask me, oh, what do I do with that material? I tell people to use it as a backup. There could be some useful stuff there. Do you really have to use it? Do you really have to study our technical and that technical? The answer is no. Our technical is sufficient, along with all your case writing. But if you want to have a look, I don't know, let's say you're studying leases, and you study our notes, and you watch our video on leases, financial accounting. And then there's I don't know, there's 50 pages of leases from CPA on the website, and you want to have a quick look at that, and you pick up a few extra points, that's fine. I would use it as a backup. But no, you don't have to buy other material in addition to the stuff that we're giving you. It's more than enough.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Ira, there is a question in the chat.
Oh, really? Oh, sorry. I missed it. Okay, I'm sorry about that. Oh, yeah, okay. So Ahmed is in, yeah. So the new course in 2000 not be a 3-day based exam. That is correct. In 2025, it is in total flux. We don't even know how many exams there will be. We don't know what they'll consist of. How many days, I don't know. We are talking at the moment, it is a big black hole. We know some basic stuff, but yes, it will not be something called a CFE. It will not be a 3-day final exam. And what happens to the MOU under the new system? Nobody can answer that now. That is something they'll probably look at after they develop. The whole new system isn't even developed yet. How can they possibly know what's going to happen with the MOU? So nobody is going to be able to answer that. Maybe they get rid of the whole MOU. Maybe people from India and Pakistan have to do the whole Canadian system, whatever that turns out to be. I don't know. Maybe they'll get a few exams. They won't have to do it. A few exams they will have to do. I don't even know how many exams there'll be. It's just very, very unknown at the moment. And with the MOU, we're not going to have that answer for quite a while.
Yeah, there was one question regarding if the person is on a visit visa. Do you have any insight on that?
So if the person, right, okay. Someone, yeah, they come on a visit visa, Ontario, yeah. Look, okay, here's the thing. We are not experts in immigration. We definitely try not to answer questions on immigration and things like that. It's just, again, it is not our expertise, and I don't want to give the wrong answer. My understanding is that in Ontario, if you're here on a visitor visa, you can write the exam. Okay? They don't want to get involved in immigration, and if you're here legally on a visitor's visa, you can write the exam. That may not be the same out west, and probably isn't. Why there's a difference across Canada, I don't know. These are weird things. But in Ontario, I believe you can write with a visitor's visa. But again, please double check anything we tell you on immigration.
Yeah, I can tell you from like in Saskatchewan province, when I was doing like back in 2016, so they asked me like they sent me the requirement and it says you have to be a resident. So probably they don't allow it on the visit visa.
They may not. You
Yeah.
may have to have a work permit or a study permit or have a PR. Yes,
Yes.
I think there are differences in Canada with this visitor visa. Again, don't ask me why. Okay, it is like that. But I believe in Ontario you can write, and I believe out west is a problem you cannot.
Yeah.
I think what you just said now is consistent with what we have typically heard.
But keep in mind that it is a moving target. When Ira and I spoke to CPA Ontario, it was a little while ago. And at that point, they were saying a visitor's visa is okay, but it is a moving target. That's why you need to speak to them directly before you make your decision.
Okay, I'm
Yeah.
looking at the chat box here. Does your technical includes standards and research via you or soft copy portal based? Oh, okay, 1 second. So we have a technical binder. We give you a hard copy. That same technical binder, you have soft copy. Okay, so it's both. You have a soft copy and we give you a technical binder hard copy. We also have a case binder and that we give you a hard copy. Some of that's also going to be soft copy and maybe not all of it, but we give you a hard copy. So most of the stuff that we give you is in hard copy. There are some cases where we only give soft copy, but all the technical notes, the big technical binder, it's one binder, is both hard copy and soft copy. I'm not sure exactly what this means. Amir, you're asking, does your technical include standards? Our technical is kind of a user-friendly summary of what we think is important, let's say for financial accounting from the handbook. We don't give you the handbook. You get access to the handbook online through the institute called NOSHA. That's where you have all the standards. We can't give you that. That's like copyrighted by the institute. Okay, so no, our binder is like a summary, a more friendly summary, and you use our binder in conjunction with the handbook and the video. Okay,
Yeah.
another question here. Oh, thanks for answering. Okay.
And I would
I have a
also just like to add something here, Ira. You were mentioning about, I think someone there's a question about how many people are passing on. What's the passing percentage?
Yes.
So I don't know about Indian Institute and their members, but over here, we also, as management committee, we also have a small group where we facilitate the members for the CP preparation and all. And we keep track of like the members who attempted, the members who passed or not. So historically, with our experience, whether the members took a course from past tense more or they took it on their own, or maybe sometimes the firms also arrange something like, I know Deloitte have their own, department where they give all the, this guidance and all the knowledge. So whatever the case may be, but overall our passing percentage has been over 70% in our experience. So that is pretty good. And yeah, so I just wanted to highlight that to encourage members, it's always good to, if you have the resources, you will get the guidance, whether you go for pass or any other, but it would basically give you the guidance and also a timeline and also the resources. So it would be organized for you instead of like doing on your own. So it definitely would be helpful if the members decide to go for it.
Yeah, no. I would definitely agree with that. Doing this, I mean, look, Canadian students, I mean, I don't know what the percentage is, but many Canadian students, all the people that are at the big four public, accounting firms have programs. So many Canadian students, probably way more than 50%, are getting guidance along the way, and they're not coming from a totally different system. People from Pakistan and India are coming from a totally different system. So yes, to do this on your own, if you're from Pakistan or India, I'm not going to say it's impossible, but quite frankly, yeah, the odds are really not in your favor. It's just you just need guidance. It's just not intuitive, and it's just because it's such a different system. I do believe we are the only, I will tell you honestly, I think we're the only course that has a dedicated program for people from India or Pakistan. It's the same program for India or Pakistan, and we call it our international program. But I do believe we are the only ones that have that. And I also believe it's going to be far longer than anyone else out there, because it's a dedicated course and we put everything in here. And again, we have enough experience on this. We know what works, and this works. And we don't want to make it shorter because we're just concerned that that would be, more of a problem for people to pass. So as I said, I don't know, way back when, we're happy with it. Like I say, we speak to lots of people every year and we see that it's working. And if it's working, I don't want to touch it. Michael doesn't want to touch it. So we're just happy with it. But it is extensive. And I will tell you, if you're comparing courses or whatever, it is, please compare apples to apples. Okay. Because it is far greater than other stuff.
Okay. I think we have come to 8:30 now. So I don't see any more questions over here. Just to let members know that we have the presentation. I think Michael sent me or someone sent. So we have the presentation and we will be sharing them with the members. So the important thing is, as Ira and Michael emphasized on, getting started earlier. So that's the key. And you will have more time. You can practice. Even if you can take out few hours in a week, that would be beneficial instead of taking a 1 month leave at the end of the period and try to do all the cases. But so that was the summary. If you have any questions, you can contact us directly, or you can send us your questions. We'll send them to Ira and Michael, and they would answer it accordingly. And I would, on behalf of the management committee, I would like to thank Michael and Ira. That was a very nice presentation, gave a proper overview and specific things which are applicable to Pakistani CAs. So thanks a lot for your time and for the presentation.
Thank you very much for giving us the opportunity.
Thank you very much.
We appreciate it.
I hope that members do come to you, register with you, and get help and they succeed.
Great. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
And with that, I think I'll end the session. Okay, thank you all the members as well for joining.
Good night.
Everybody have a good night.
Thank you
Good
so
night.
much.
Bye.
You're welcome.